Tek Knight's story is a classic Greek tragedy. In his narrative, we find a tragic hero, a chorus that provides context to his life and the overpowering force of destiny shaping an Athenian drama. Meet Tek Knight, an extraordinary individual whose only flaw is being obscenely wealthy. Unlike the typical moral decay seen in other supers, Robert's life and actions are pristine. In his 30-plus years as a superhero, he has never committed any atrocities or acts of injustice. This parody of Iron Man and Batman doesn't rely on compound vi. Like those iconic figures, Robert is merely a human who faced a life-altering tragedy when his parents were taken from him in a single night, victims of the rampant crime in his world. Faced with such a loss, the young man vowed to use his potential for good. Through sheer determination and brilliance, Robert developed a powerful suit, not to repay society with money but with justice. He aimed to ensure that no other child would have to grow up without parental figures like he did. We first meet Tek Knight in the initial arc of the comic series, specifically in issue number 8. Here, the famed hero makes the wise decision to visit a psychologist. However, to truly understand this visit, we need to delve into his origins. In the comics, Tek Knight is as wealthy as the version we see on the series, yet the original material leaves the source of his ancestral wealth a mystery. On the show, we learn that Tek Knight's family fortune comes from a corrupt association with the state, initially from illegal slave trading and later through the controversial private prison industry, which imprisons people under absurd charges. However, due to in the comics Tek Knight's technological prowess, we might speculate that his wealth comes from a source akin to Tony Stark's, developing high-tech weaponry for America's vast military-industrial complex. Regardless, one thing is clear. Robert's family is among the wealthiest in the world. It's easy to think that money is everything, but even the rich suffer. In addition to losing his parents at a young age, Tek Knight is tragically destined for loneliness, without parental figures to guide him or relatives who genuinely care. His only company is the family butler, Master Thomas, a loyal servant who has been with the family for 40 years. Under the butler's strict tutelage, the comic book Tek Knight is a calm and homebound individual, so much so that William Butcher regards him as the only great super who doesn't cause trouble and doesn't do anything dirty or disloyal. After developing his powerful armor, Robert dedicates most of his time to fighting crime in New York under the alias Tek Knight. His passion for technology, combined with infinite wealth, makes him one of the strongest humans in history without any compound vi in his system. The Tek Knight armor is so formidable that it is considered for future inclusion in the elite group, the Seven, a goal that fuels his life's ambitions. Robert is one of the naive few who believe the Seven symbolize justice and integrity. Tek Knight is a unique blend, 20% Iron Man and 80% Batman. This combination influences his entry into the world of supers, alongside his faithful apprentice Ladio. Together, echoing the iconic dynamic of Batman and Robin, they pursue the criminals of New York City. Their frequent adversary is the enigmatic Talon, a seductive and complex character who straddles the line between hero and villain, much like Catwoman. Tired of the endless cat-and-mouse game, which seemed to make no real difference as New Yorkers continued to suffer losses like his own, Tek Knight had an epiphany. He realized that their efforts against Talon were merely part of a superficial spectacle that did little to alleviate the broader suffering in the city. Motivated by this realization, Tek Knight decided to establish his own group of superheroes known as the Mavericks. This new team would strive to make a meaningful difference, tackling the roots of crime and injustice in a way he and Ladio alone could not. In his first experience leading a group composed of compound V-enhanced supers, Tek Knight emerged as the undisputed leader of the Mavericks. However, his ideals and capabilities soon proved to be on a completely different level compared to his teammates. The Mavericks were driven not by justice or morality, but purely by the lure of profit. Their actions throughout their history reveal a willingness to do anything for money, including engaging in morally dubious activities. A stark example of their greed came after they were spotted at the notorious Herogasm event. James Stillwell tasked the Mavericks with using their powers to eliminate Butcher's team, a proposal they accepted for the promise of a penthouse. This decision led to a brutal confrontation where the inexperienced Mavericks were massacred by Butcher's far more capable team. Gravely injured and near death, the Mavericks learned the hard way that there are things money cannot buy. Tek Knight, disenchanted with the group's direction, soon left the team. Shortly thereafter, he received an invitation to join Payback, the second most powerful superhero team in history. Seeing this as an opportunity to make a real impact, Robert embraced the chance to utilize Payback as a platform for genuine societal change. Despite high expectations, little is known about Robert's specific actions and influence within Payback. In the sprawling saga of supers, Payback stands out not for heroism, but for being perhaps the most reprehensible team. Hence, Tek Knight is often depicted as isolated from the group on the team's cover art. Despite the immense power of its members, they view Payback merely as a stepping stone to the more prestigious team, the Seven. From the supremacist Stormfront to the seemingly humble Soldier Boy, every character in this group is willing to go to any lengths for a chance to join the Seven. Ironically, the only member of Payback to receive an invitation to the Seven is Tek Knight himself. His innovative technology and mental stability make him a prime candidate to replace the legendary Lamplighter, who has been absent from the public eye for months. However, Robert's dream of securing a spot in the illustrious group is delayed by a whim of Homelander, who decided to test Starlight's willingness to fill this role. Yet Vaught's real plan is to replace Starlight's interim position with the legendary Tek Knight, a superhero with real substance. As I mentioned earlier, despite his high education and wealth, Robert, like every super, harbors the deep-seated dream of securing a spot in the Seven. Fortunately for him, it's only a matter of time before this dream becomes a reality. Yet in a cruel twist of fate, Tek Knight doesn't have much time left. With his nomination to the Seven, the wheels of a Greek tragedy begin to turn. A tragedy that starts with the betrayal of his first apprentice, Ladio. One ordinary evening, the air at Tek Knight's mansion changed when they were visited by the enigmatic Talon. Known to some as a sort of Catwoman, Tek Knight and his apprentice Ladio greeted her with a mix of hostility and curiosity, unsure after all these years whether she was friend or foe. Over fine wine and Thai food, the trio reminisced about their past adventures, the night unfolding with a nostalgic glow. As the evening deepened, Ladio made a bold move that shifted the tone of the friendly gathering. Observing that his apprentice's audacity was well received, Tek Knight attempted to give them some privacy. However, to everyone's surprise, Talon stopped him. She was interested in both men. Don Robert, a man of refined manners and education, found himself succumbing to temptation. While Tek Knight couldn't fathom how the situation escalated so quickly, the lustful expression on his loyal apprentice's face would haunt him for the rest of his days. The shame of such an undignified experience was something he could never shake off. As a result of that night, Robert found himself with no choice but to let go of Ladio, who then adopted the new identity of Swing Wing, becoming Vaught's first openly LGBT super. Despite their separation, there appeared to be no hard feelings. Tek Knight often collaborated with his former apprentice to increase the visibility of Swing Wing's new campaigns. After yielding to his impulses on that tumultuous night, Tek Knight felt his life steeped in disgrace. That evening with Ladio and Talon became the catalyst for a series of erratic behaviors. Despite his efforts to suppress these overwhelming desires, Robert found himself increasingly unable to control his baser instincts. This inner turmoil culminated during a routine patrol with Payback, where, propelled by an uncontrollable urge, he attempted an assault on one of his teammates, Mind Droid, while in flight. The only thing that prevented this assault from escalating was their altitude, soaring at 3,000 meters. This incident severely tarnished Robert's standing within the team. Stormfront, witnessing Robert's actions, found them utterly unacceptable. While Stormfront could overlook extreme actions like inciting racial violence, he drew a hard line at any form of sexual misconduct among teammates, even if the target was a telepathic robot. As a result, Tek Knight was irrevocably expelled from the prestigious team. Isolated and grappling with his troubling behavior, Robert found himself without the structure and mission that had once defined his superhero identity. With no role in Payback's activities, he was left to confront and seek answers for his new destructive impulses. The reasons for Tek Knight's first visit to a psychologist in the comics are deeply rooted in his troubled psyche, a detail that sets him apart as a uniquely introspective hero. This visit marks a pivotal moment, portraying him as potentially the greatest hero in history. During his session, Tek Knight is candid, unfolding his tumultuous experiences with Payback, and revealing peculiar behaviors that have taken hold of him, behaviors not even he can understand. His tech cave, he discloses, is inexplicably filled with strange holes, a manifestation of his erratic actions. His conduct has escalated to dangerous levels, evidenced by a distressing incident where he fatally harmed his sister's chinchilla in a manner similar to his attempted assault on his teammate. The consultation takes a darker turn when, left alone momentarily as the psychologist steps out to schedule a follow-up, Tek Knight harms the therapist's cat. This violent act leads to his ban from the office, leaving him without the professional help he desperately needs. Faced with isolation and a lack of support, Robert has no choice but to return to his tech cave, clinging to a faint hope that things might magically improve. There, his new apprentice, the second Ladio, awaits him, symbolizing perhaps a chance for renewal or a further descent into chaos. In the wake of his previous apprentice's dismissal, Tek Knight is joined by a new, innocent young Ladio, unaware of the darkness enveloping his mentor. This fresh-faced Ladio steps into a situation fraught with tension. Sensing the profound despondency of his mentor, the young apprentice suggests what he believes to be the best therapy: intense physical exercise in the private gym of the millionaire hero. However, Robert, aware of the dangerous impulses he harbors, hesitates to accept. The incredible silhouette of his young apprentice is a temptation he fears he cannot resist. Inspired by the man he used to be, Tek Knight faces a challenging decision to protect the innocence and integrity of his new Ladio. In a decisive move, Tek Knight sends Ladio on a formidable mission that could take years to complete. The young apprentice is tasked with traveling among various superhero groups, absorbing all the knowledge and skills they can offer. This mission, unbeknownst to the young Ladio, not only serves as a comprehensive training but also shields him from the potential harm of staying close to Tek Knight. Ladio, blissfully unaware of the danger he was in, obeys his mentor and embarks on this journey. Tek Knight found himself grappling with the emptiness of his mansion, now devoid of the young energy that had briefly filled its halls. The departure was a painful yet necessary decision, recognized by the hero as a sacrifice for the greater good. Left only with the company of his loyal butler, Master Thomas, who had raised him and shaped him into the hero he became, in a moment of profound distress, Tek Knight crossed a boundary that should never have been breached. The night Ladio set out on his journey, Tek Knight attempted to use Thomas's ear in ways it is not designed for, an action that was wholly inappropriate and inexcusable for any relationship, much less that between master and servant. The next morning, the consequences of this overstep were clear. Master Thomas, having reached his limit, packed his bags and left the mansion. Despite Robert's pleas and apologies, the butler's decision was irrevocable. He departed with the assurance that all of his master's secrets would remain safe with him, an assurance that suggested a continued respect and loyalty to the bond they had shared, despite its unfortunate end. The departure of Master Thomas marks the beginning of a precipitous collapse in Tek Knight's world. This decline is hastened by a distressing phone call from none other than Dakota Bob, the President of the United States. The call brings grave news. Tek Knight's recent unsavory activities are on the verge of becoming public, leaked by a trusted individual who went to votes offices to divulge the details. Despite Robert's attempts to object, President Bob makes it clear that his chance to fill Starlight's seat in the Seven is now unequivocally gone. He sternly requests that Tek Knight cease all communications with him, effectively severing ties. However, in a gesture of respect for the hero's former prestige, Bob reveals a startling betrayal. The whistleblower is Swingwing, the new identity of his former apprentice, Ladio. Swingwing, now deeply involved in the political machinations of the hero hierarchy, aims to bury Tek Knight's career to claim his spot in Payback. Faced with this betrayal and the collapse of his aspirations, Tek Knight chooses an unexpected path. Rather than seeking revenge against his former protégé, he decided to dedicate his time to the great habit of reading. As Tek Knight sought refuge in the pages of classic literature, his tranquility was abruptly shattered by a knock at the door. 2 government agents stood waiting, eager to speak with the enigmatic hero. Robert tried to maintain the secrecy of his hero identity, but Agent Butcher, equipped with knowledge from Eagle the Archer, another member of Payback who had years earlier revealed dark secrets about his teammates, was already well informed. In a dramatic gesture that revealed his knowledge, Butcher removed a copy of Edgar Allan Poe's detective novel, The Purloined Letter, signaling that he knew who Tek Knight really was. This intrusion left Tek Knight with no choice but to let the agents into his tech cave. Despite his willingness to cooperate with the law, Robert was perturbed by Butcher's bold and abrasive approach. The agents hadn't even bothered to show their credentials, yet Robert agreed to answer their questions, which mainly focused on Swing Wing, the former apprentice who had betrayed his personal secrets to Vowed. However, even in the face of betrayal, Tek Knight chose not to tarnish his own image with petty revenge. He spoke only kindly of Swing Wing's new path, maintaining his dignity and refusing to stoop to spite. Huey and Butcher's first visit to the Tek Cave yielded nothing of value from Tek Knight. In a turn of events reflecting poorly on the agents, Huey, failing to gain access to the Tek bathroom, was forced to relieve himself at the hero's doorstep, a crude act that starkly contrasted with Robert's own refined demeanor. This incident underscores Robert's superior values and upbringing compared to those of the supposed arm of justice. However, the assault on his character did not end there. The morning following the agent's visit, Robert's secret identity was scandalously revealed in every major news outlet under the sensational headline, "Homosexual hero, millionaire socialite, Tek Knight tried to abuse his butler, a pervert." The revelation of Tek Knight's private life in the press marks a turning point for the superhero, not just in public perception but in his personal battle with betrayal. According to Agent Butcher, it was Thomas, Tek Knight's former butler, who sold the story for mere dollars, a betrayal that cuts deeper given the trust and history shared between them. However, those familiar with Butcher's tactics from the comics might wonder if this exposé was another of his calculated strikes against them. Faced with such betrayal, even the typically benevolent Tek Knight finds his patience at its end. Donning his suit, he sets out with the dark intent of making his former betarder pay dearly for his treachery, envisioning a gruesome retaliation that matches the violent impulses he has struggled with recently. However, just as Tek Knight is about to act on his vengeful plan, Butcher arrives at his mansion again, this time to delve into another matter, the mysterious death of Stephen Rubenstein, a young man who died after falling from a rooftop. Tek Knight is not connected to this incident, but his former apprentice, Swing Wing, is deeply involved. This time, Butcher's intentions are not at all friendly. As tensions escalate, Robert in his advanced suit, designed to make him the strongest non-compound biohuman on the planet, prepares for a potentially lethal confrontation. His suit, equipped with lasers set to discharge 1,000 volts, could easily end the lives of his opponents, reflecting his desperation and the extremity of his current situation. Just as Tek Knight is about to unleash his devastating attack, he is abruptly stopped by the female. She demonstrates her own formidable powers by dismantling his powerful suit in mere seconds, leaving Robert with injuries that will mark him for life. Tek Knight is left with no choice but to divulge the tragic tale of his life. He opens up about his complex relationship with Swing Wing, the real murderer in the ongoing investigation. This confession is a moment of vulnerability for Tek Knight. The agents have nothing left but to leave the Tek Cave and redirect their focus toward apprehending the real murderer, Swing Wing. Stripped of his powerful armor by the female, and with his ambitions to replace Starlight dashed, Tek Knight finds himself merely a man among many in the bustling city. His once formidable suit, now irreparably damaged, leaves him a mere spectator of his own storied past, walking the streets filled with reflections of his glory days. On his very first day without his superhero gear, he witnesses a dire situation. A mother and her newborn baby are seconds away from being crushed by a cart teetering dangerously overhead, loaded with heavy blocks. Without his suit, Robert faces a pivotal moment. True heroism isn't about immense power or dazzling abilities, but the willingness to genuinely sacrifice oneself for others. In this moment, Robert embodies the essence of heroism more profoundly than ever before. With no high-tech armor to shield him, no lasers to deploy, and no public acclaim to win, he acts solely out of the instinct to save lives. Rushing forward, he manages to shield the mother and her baby, preventing a tragedy with nothing but his human strength and bravery. This act of heroism marks a significant transformation for Tek Knight. It's a stark reminder that true heroism doesn't rely on spectacular powers or external validations. It is defined by the simple, often overlooked acts of kindness and bravery. Robert's determination is enough to save the young mother's life. Following Tek Knight's selfless act, an extraordinary crisis unfolds that dwarfs all previous challenges. A meteor shower devastates New York City, and looming larger is an even more catastrophic threat, a gigantic asteroid in orbit, 14 times the size of Costa Rica, threatening to obliterate life as we know it. With NASA and its bureaucrats caught unprepared for such a dire situation, humanity stands on the brink of disaster. In a twist of fate, scientists discover an unusual feature on the asteroid, an orifice surrounded by what appears to be organic material. This detail resonates deeply with Tek Knight, who, as dictated by fate or cosmic irony, has been haunted by an obsession with holes over the past year, an obsession that has led him to the brink of ruin, and now paradoxically positions him as uniquely suited to address this new challenge. It is not for nothing that Marcus Aurelius, in his wisdom, used to say that what happens, happens for the best. Tek Knight sees a serendipitous opportunity in the crisis. He crashes an emergency meeting, declaring that if the asteroid indeed possesses an orifice, he is the best man for the job. His claim is not just about heroism, it's a shot at redemption, a chance to transform his personal demons into a global salvation effort. In a dramatic and selfless final act that mirrors Tony Stark's in The Avengers, Tek Knight ascends to orbit, ready to sacrifice everything for the greater good. His year-long obsession, once the source of ridicule and defamation, becomes his unique strength, preparing him to face this cosmic challenge head-on. As the world watches, from Paris to India, every global citizen comes to recognize him as the true hero of Vowed. Tek Knight successfully intercepts the asteroid, filling its orifice with powerful explosives. His actions not only avert the global catastrophe, but also cement his status as a hero in the eyes of the world. The asteroid is obliterated and humanity is saved, thanks to his courage and quick thinking. However, in true heroic fashion, such a monumental victory comes with the ultimate sacrifice. Tek Knight loses his life in the explosion, but his legacy transcends physical boundaries. His spirit ascends, becoming an astral entity that continues to protect Earth from future threats, a guardian watching over humanity from the stars. This story would be a fitting tribute to a great hero, one whose name should be etched in history books for generations. However, the narrative takes a poignant turn as we learn that this grand tale of heroism and sacrifice is nothing more than a figment of Robert's imagination, a delusion caused by a brain tumor that plagues his mind. As Robert attempts to save a mother and her newborn from impending doom, the weight of falling concrete blocks crushes him, ending his life instantly. In his final moments, spurred by a brain tumor that fueled his erratic behavior and delusions, he imagines himself saving humanity from an asteroid, embodying the hero he always aspired to be. This illness explains his recent compulsive actions and positions him as perhaps the only genuinely good super in the comic's narrative. Raised commendably by his butler Thomas, Robert strives to minimize harm even amidst his deteriorating condition. He visits a psychologist, removes Ladio from potential danger, and refrains from seeking revenge against those who exploited his private life, displaying a resilience and moral fortitude not seen in many of his counterparts. The tragic accident with the concrete blocks, while devastating, is poetically timely, sparing Robert from the prolonged suffering his tumor would have caused. His death, though tragic, allows him to die doing what he cherished most, acting as a true hero, sacrificing himself for the safety of others. In stark contrast, the Tek Knight of the series embodies moral degradation, using his wealth and influence for personal gain and nefarious purposes, including turning private prisons into concentration camps under a totalitarian regime. This version of Tek Knight meets his end at the hands of his butler, a demise that starkly contrasts with the noble death of his comic counterpart. This dual portrayal of Tek Knight showcases the spectrum of human capability, from the highest acts of virtue to the deepest descents into vice, influenced profoundly by individual choices. This being the reason why he calls the story of Tek Knight a Greek tragedy, despite the hero's good actions and his genuine interest in using his resources in solidarity to have a better world. The tragedy leads him to situations that are not desired, without enjoying what they experienced and without fulfilling their great purposes. As we wrap up this exploration of Tek Knight's character, I invite you all to share in the comments which version of Tek Knight resonates more with you, or what you might have done differently to avert the tragedy. Don't forget to leave a like or dislike, and thank you all for sticking to the end. See you soon. Bye.